But anyway, I think,
All right, good evening, everyone. We're so glad to see you here. My name is William Roca. I am the Director of Programs at Village Preservation. Before we get the ceremony started, can I see some hands? Who are Village Preservation members? Thank you. Thank you very, very much. The rest of you, shame. And we have Divine backing up here as well. So please do become a member. We have membership brochures there on the table as you go out. Also, please feel free to come see me or my colleague Hannah back there to learn more about Village Preservation. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, just to give you a little kind of summary of who we are and what we do, we were founded in 1980. And we're dedicated to preserving architectural, cultural, and historical heritage of Greenwich Village, the East Village, and NoHo. And we put on about 75 to 80 free programs like this throughout the year. So Hannah and I are very, very busy throughout the year putting these programs together. But we are a member-based organization. So that's why those who are members, from the bottom of my heart, it is a really big thank you. We can't do the work we do without your support. And for the rest of you, if you're just interested, go to our website, villagepreservation.org. You can check out and learn about all the advocacy work we do. We've helped designate over 1,250 buildings in our neighborhoods to protect them. We also have a bunch of fantastic virtual maps. You can put together your own walking tour, learn about this area, one of the greatest areas in the city. And you can also learn more about all the different programs that we have available. And one of the benefits of memberships is you get early access to all of our programs. And we are continually planning on doing more only member organized programs as well. So definitely do consider becoming a member. But now it's my great privilege to introduce James and Carla Murray. This is our second time having an event with them. I'm just going to read their quick bio here. For those of you who are not familiar with them, they're a husband and wife, architectural and interior photographers, multimedia artists based here in New York. And for 25 years, they focused their lens on the streetscape through portraits of storefront shop owners and have strived to capture moments of city life that often go undocumented. So, James and Carla, it's awesome to have you back.
Thank you so much. I need a mic. I mean, my voice is usually carries pretty well, but let's see. Is it better? Okay, good. Not too reverb. Okay. So thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. We're going to talk about our new book, Great Bars in New York City. And as William has already introduced us, I'm Carla and James, and we are husband and wife photographers. Not only do we reside together, but we work together, which is, unusual for a photography duo. And tonight we'll talk a little bit about the bars that we highlighted in our new book, and kind of like the process, and like a little bit more about our photography and why we feel that they're so important, and especially to document them. And it's right in line with the work of Village Preservation, because we're big fans of helping preserve the community and the neighborhoods. To us, it's these small mom and pop businesses, that's what we like to call them, the mom and pop stores, that really are the backbones of every neighborhood. And really our journey, James and I live in the East Village, and we began documenting these small mom and pop stores like well over 25 years ago. We created a number of books on the subject. I'm not sure if you're familiar with our work, but our most recent book is over there, Storefront, The Disappearing Face of New York. You can go to the next slide, William. There it is up on the screen. And what we did with this book was we took like kind of a culmination of our 25 years of documenting them, and we put together some photos from the past, like of storefronts that are no longer with us, but also added new storefronts, I call them new, that might be businesses that have been around for a while. And we also freshened up some of the photographs of places that are still in business today, but that might have refronted or changed their facade in any way. Because the whole purpose of our documentation and our books is to help raise awareness of the importance of these small places. And when we finished our book, Storefront NYC, we said, you know what? We know what direction our next book project is going to take. We're going to focus on its bars, because to us, the neighborhood bar are like, I guess really, Ernest Hemingway has a quote that, and I don't want to mess up the whole quote, so I'm going to actually read it this time. Don't bother with churches, government buildings, oddly enough, or city squares. If you want to know about a culture, spend a night in its bars. And to us, it perfectly sums up the neighborhood bar, because it's a place that not only is like a melting pot, but a place where you can get away from like your worries, your troubles, and in a place like New York City where there's like a huge amount of space, but a lot of people live in small isolating apartments. I mean, James and I live in a small, very small studio apartment, and getting out and going to a bar is like, it kind of being your home away from home, a place where you can escape, maybe even a workspace. Maybe meet somebody, meet your future, friend, husband, wife, companion, best friend, and also, I guess, what would you say?
We always say it's a place you can go out and be alone altogether.
Right, so you can enjoy your solitude, or you can enjoy, meeting and talking to people, not only fellow patrons at the bar, but the bartender who, a lot of bartenders that we, interviewed and spoke with, they said, oh, wow, I'm just like, a therapist in a way. I hear all the, not only like the neighborhood dirt, but I hear a lot of people's, they just unleash their problems and their worries, and I feel like I'm helping them in many ways. And we said, yeah, you certainly do form that role. So when we were selecting the 30 locations, because we have a page limit, for us, if we could, we would make the book like 1,000 pages and include every bar in all 5 boroughs. But for the purpose of this book, we narrowed it down. We had to narrow it down to 30, and it made sense to us to only focus on Manhattan. So this book, Great Bars in New York City, its subtitle inside, like it doesn't appear on the exterior, is actually 30 of Manhattan's favorite story drinking establishments. So tonight, we're going to talk about Manhattan's great bars. But in particular, because this is village preservation, we're going to talk about ones in Greenwich Village and East Village. And believe it or not, out of the 30 that are in our book, 11 of them are in Greenwich Village or East Village. And I happen to be sporting the shirt for one of them that we'll be talking about tonight. Maybe you've never been to it. So let's get started. First up, McSorley's Old Ale House. Now, McSorley's, a lot of people are familiar with McSorley's because it's been around for a really long time. As you see, established 1854. It's on, if you're not sure where it is, it's on East 7th Street by Cooper Square. So like right near Cooper Union, the famous prestigious school. And it's located in a beautiful small building. You could see the one floor above it there with the little windows. But it's like the East Village contains, and Greenwich Village as well, many small lower buildings. East Village, this one, I think, is it 4 stories? Yeah, 4 or 5, I can't recall, but it's that, I think 4 if I remember correctly. But it's actually the oldest Irish bar in existence in New York City. Not the oldest bar, but the oldest Irish bar. And it was founded by the McSorley family. And they're known as the bar that was the last place in New York City to admit only men. It was a popular thing at the really through Prohibition and beyond, up until around 1960. Most bars excluded women from them. A lot of people don't realize this, and this is going back, to the late 1800s, early 1900s. It was kind of like a male clubhouse, and the McSorley family. In 1970, they weren't the owners at that time. They had passed it along to another Irish family that was, I don't know if they were related to them somehow, but they knew each other. But they were really dead set against having women come into their bar. And it actually went into a law case, Seidenberg versus McSorley, where patrons of the bar had to take the family to court and say, this is not right. We want to drink at the bar, and it resulted in McSorley's law, which now prohibits sex discrimination in not only bars, restaurants, but golf clubs and hotels and other, public accommodations. So it's it has quite an interesting history. And as you see from the exterior, you can kind of see the sawdust on the floor. If you go to the next slide, and this is what sets this book apart from any other book that we've done in the past, is for the first time we're showcasing our interior photography. Just to give you a little background, William mentioned that James and I are architectural and interior photographers. So even though we were documenting these small mom and pop businesses for many, many years, going inside, speaking to the owners, and taking photos of the interior, we never shared them with anybody. I mean, really not even on, when we started gaining a social media account and we were putting things up on Instagram. For the most part, we stuck with our exterior photography because we sort of became known for it, and it just, was a familiar thread. But for the bar book, we felt very, very, very strongly that we wanted to include our interior photography because there's so many fascinating details and just the beauty of the space alone. And McSorley's is the first bar that opens up our book and one of our personal favorites because it has such an amazing interior. Original, 1854. You can see all the footsteps. Now, of course, the sawdust, they put down fresh daily, so it's not the same sawdust since 1854. But the bar is the same. You can see this beautiful bar. The potbelly stove that you see there, it still works if you go there on a cold winter day, or, I think we'll start lighting it soon, actually, because, fall nights can be chilly, so, in the summertime it won't be lit, but they still use it to help heat the bar. It actually does work. The original bar taps that you see here, and, it's hard to see in this photo because, it's just blown up, for purposes of our talk tonight, but in our book, you can see all the amazing details because lining the walls are amazing, amazing photos and memorabilia, including, if you see, you can see the gas lamp right here. This is all the original fixtures too, the bar has, which these lamps were gas lamps. So, the bar is so old, it predates electricity. So they were fed by, I think, candle at first, and then gas, and now they've been retrofitted to be electrified. But hanging from those old gas lamps, and this one right here, are turkey wishbones. And what happened was, during World War I, doughboys would come into the bar and they would place a turkey wishbone on that gas lamp in hopes that, when they make it back from a safe time, wherever they were being sent to war, that they would remove the wishbone. So sadly, all the ones that are still hanging today represent the fallen, all the men who never made it back home. And interestingly enough, well, most of the photos that are in our book, because people ask us, oh, you've been documenting these for a while, are these old photos? No, they're not. We purposely, for the most part, all the photos are taken in 2023 because we wanted to show you guys what the bar looks like in its current day. Even though the book now is, the pub date is 2024, we actually had to hand in all the photography to our publisher in 2023. So we said, okay, we have this short period of time, we're going to re-photograph even places that we've been to before to make sure everything was current and accurate. So in the case of the turkey wishbones, we have photos dating back to the early 2000s when they were covered in dust. And it's kind of like well known if you had been at the place that there was a lot of dust hanging, like all the little chopskis and things like that. And it wasn't, the dust was there for a reason, especially with the wishbones. The Amar family who owned the bar, they were hesitant to touch the wishbones because, first of all, they were like sacred, especially to the family members who, who lost people. Maybe they may not even have the remains to have buried. So, like, that's kind of like their thing, that they would come and, raise a glass to their family member, to commemorate them. But also because they were so old that they were brittle. So they were afraid that if they touched them to dust them, that they would crack. But what happened was, if you guys are familiar with New York, I don't remember exactly what year, but the health inspectors started to do this grading system for all restaurants and bars where they would grade them A, B, C, D, etc. And they came into McSorley's and they're like, okay, we understand the significance, but you guys are gonna have to clean these. So they gingerly removed them, and I think Teresa said, I think they used like a little blower, like James and I use for our photography to like blow dust off photos, and then like a little paintbrush to like gently brush them so nothing would happen to them. But it's kind of like an interesting little side story because many of you might have been at the bar and it was well known for the dust. But don't worry, it's very clean and no problems at all. Another thing that they left behind were, it's again a little difficult to see here, but there's fireman hats. And not only firemen, but hats from different officers, including a fireman hat from somebody from 9/11 who, sadly perished during 9/11. And do we have one more slide, I think, of stories? Yes, next slide, William?
No.
Oh, no, okay, so go back. We're not ready for Julius yet. Sneak peek of what's coming up next.
The wanted poster.
Right. Yes. Talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things.
There's a real wanted poster in there looking for Lincoln's assassin.
It's back over there. So there's just so many beautiful details for you to look at. And also,
all kinds of stuff.
Right, written, it's a little bit off the frame of this photo, but there's also the motto, be good or be gone, that's engraved in the wood here. Kind of like goes with the whole McSorley's theme. I mean, as you see, it's like stepping into the past because there's no big screen TVs. It encourages you to either, like James is saying, be alone together, but to have a friendly conversation with others because you're not distracted by watching TV or, they don't have like a no cell phone rule or anything. They didn't go that far, but they don't have the big screen TV. So that's what we really like about this space.
So when you order a beer, you get 2 little mugs.
Right, instead of being served in a pint, which is usually the way for especially an Irish bar, you're given 2 glasses known as schooners. So
They're like little glass mugs.
yeah, we always tell people, bring a friend with you if you're going to McSorley's because it's kind of like 2 for the price of 1. You're going to get 2 drinks whether you just want one anyway, so you might as well bring a friend to drink.
Only
with you.
2 types.
Right, and they only serve 2 types of beer, so don't order any other type. Don't try to say, oh, I want a Miller Lite or anything like that there. It's McSorley's own ale. It's either dark or light. And the light variety, I think they call it, I made a note of that. It's an Irish style malted ale. And the dark is like a heavier variety of their ale. And yeah, so let's go on to the next slide. We're going to go from the East Village to Greenwich Village, and in particular, the West Village. This is Julius, and Julius's is located on West 10th Street at the corner of Waverly Place. And a lot of you might be familiar with Stonewall Inn. Now, Stonewall is another bar. We're not going to talk about it today because we have a limited amount of time, but it is in our book. That's one of the 30 great bars that we chose to include. But Stonewall is known to many because of its connection to the LGBTQ movement. But a lot of people don't realize that actually the birthplace of the modern LGBTQ movement happened right here at Julius. And let's go back a second before we talk about that, because it wasn't always a bar that attracted LGBTQ community. It actually has a lot of, it was like more like a grocery store grog. It's located in a beautiful building. We have the exterior photo in our book. Let's see. The building was erected in 1826. It's a gorgeous building, and it began as a bar in 1864, so not too different time frame than McSorley's. But it wasn't an Irish bar. It was more like just like your locally grocery store grog kind of place. And you can't see in this photo, but it goes really, really deep. So it's actually, there's a building, the main building, and then it connects to like this back area. There's like a little step, you know, like this.
Yeah, back in
A step to the back room. But at first it just was like kind of like a neighborhood bar, and then it became a pony bar. If you look behind here, you see some horse photos. And now those were Derby winners because, you know, there was so much betting going on at this bar that the owner put, you know, some racehorses back there too. So you can look for those details. But the date that's significant with the LGBTQ movement is on April 21st, 1966, which is like a couple years before the first brick was thrown at Stonewall Inn. Is members of a group called the Mattachine Society, and the names of these members are Dick Leitch, Craig Rodwell, and John Timmons. I wanted to make sure I got that correct. Yes, you can go to the next slide. Organized what was called as a sip-in. And what had happened was the bar had been raided previously by the police because at that time, it was illegal to serve known homosexuals in a bar. They said that you'd get arrested for disorderly conduct if you were found in a bar. And the bar would be fined, and they could lose their liquor license. There's like a whole host of things that were going on. And because the bar had been just raided, the bartender, he went to go serve those three members of the Mattachine Society, but he realized who they were, and he put his hands over the glass when he was ready to serve them. And that moment was caught by the press photographer, the New York Times, and this is the photo right there, you can see in the bottom left. And the headlines that was published in the New York Times is 3 devious, you see it right here, invite exclusion by bars. And it got a tremendous amount of press because people were outraged by it. And it led to the LGBTQ movement and subsequently a law being passed that homosexuals had the right to congregate. And it was really a very pivotal moment for the community. Stonewall Inn, of course, gets a lot of press and a lot of recognition, but really this was the moment that spearheaded the whole thing. You know, the current owner, she's such a Helen Buford. She's such a wonderful woman. She inherited the bar from her husband. She and her husband had owned it. Sadly, he passed away. but she's just been a wonderful steward of the bar and gives so much back to the community, especially during Pride Month and during the days itself. And she holds, you know, like the Mattachine Society still comes and, you know, they do this thing like on that anniversary of that day, they'll, you know, have a little gathering. But she's just so active in the community, and she's really helped preserve. You could go back one slide to the previous one. Perfect. You could see the pride flag hanging in the back. Other details that you should look for when you go to the bar, besides that wall of photos, you know, are the bar itself. You can't see in this photo, but another interior photo that we included is actually propped up by beer barrels made by the Jacob Rupert Beer Company, and they're actually the same barrels that they repurposed for use for seating. So those are really like, you know, back from the 1800s. We love the wagon wheel light fixture, which was, as you see, lit by candle originally, and then now, of course, it's been electrified. But it's just an amazing, amazing bar, a welcoming space, and
They thought the name Julius
oh, right.
came from a dog.
Right, the name, people say, oh, what's Julius? Was that the name of the owner? And no, it's thought that the name Julius came to be because the original owner had basset hounds named Julius. And the bar, sadly, it's not there anymore, but the bar used to have footrests made of brass of basset hounds lining the whole name of the bar. And we had photographed it many years ago because, like I said, we have been doing our interior photography for many, many years. And we have the photos of those brass footrests. However, when we went to re-photograph in 2023, the footnet rests had been removed. A couple of them broke, and I think another one or two were stolen. So Helen just took them out because it was too awkward to have some, but not all of them. And another little gem that I want to point out if you're going to go to Julius, and it's not actually too far from here, you can go after the event is over, is this little kitchen area right here.
They make a nice hamburger.
Delicious burger, I have to say, and very affordable. So on to the next slide. Okay, yeah, next. Yeah, perfect. So now we're going to Minetta Tavern. Now, Minetta Tavern isn't in the West Village. That's, I guess, really what you would say the heart of Greenwich Village. It's on the corner of Minetta Lane and McDougal Street. And it is an amazing, amazing space. We have an exterior photograph, of course, as well, but really, to us, the gem is the interior. It was established in 1937, and it was started by a man named Eddie Salieri. And he owned it for so long that they called him Eddie Minetta. And little interesting fact that people don't know, why it was called Minetta Tavern and why the streets are called Minetta is that there's actually, it was named after the brook. There's a body of water called the Minetta Brook, which runs underneath, and I think it runs southwest from 23rd Street all the way to the Hudson River. So, I don't know if you could still, if you live in one of the buildings surrounding that, if you can still hear any gurgling, you know, in the basement level, but yeah, that's small stream. I mean, it might have been all filled in by now, but that's the genesis of the name of why that whole area, and there's like Minetta Lane, and then there's Minetta Place as well, right? You know, where the theater is and everything like that, and that little windy, beautiful side street. But Minetta Tavern is famous because it became a haunt for many figures in the literary and artist world, including, and I'm just going to, there's so many that I can't even memorize them all, Ernest Hemingway, Ezra Pound, E.E. Cummings, Eugene O'Neill, Dylan Thomas, and F. Scott Fitzgerald, as well as many members of the Beat Generation, artists, and a group of poets known as the Ravens. And the most famous literary figure associated with Minetta Tavern is Joe Gould. Joe Gould was such a frequent customer at Minetta Tavern, and by the way, he was often homeless, that they said that he would trade a poem for 2 martinis. I don't know how true that is, but you know, I like the story. This view of the interior is like you walk in the door and you're like right here, and there's like a little maitre d' set up over here. And so we kind of took it by almost like the front area window, but it's showing the beautiful, beautiful original bar. And the bar back that you can see over there has leaded glass in it as well. That's all original. And another detail to look for are these tiny little, I don't know if you can see them up over here, there's little silhouettes. They're like little cutouts made by a German artist. And they're said to be like almost priceless. They're worth a lot.
Close-up of it in the book.
Yeah, we have detailed photographs of it in the book as well. But it's just a stunning, stunning space. Now, Eddie Savieri, he sold the restaurant to Taka Bekovic, who was originally from Montenegro. And Taka kept the menu the same because they served Northern Italian food, and he kept the original interior. But what happened was there was a huge rent increase, and Taka couldn't afford it. I mean, I don't know the exact rent increase, but it's rumored to have been back in, what was that, 2008? Is that? That's my notes, yeah. 2008 it was sold to restaurateur Keith McNally. And Taka said, like, off the record, that they were trying to raise his rent to like $50,000 a month. I'm not sure if that was the exact figure, but I mean, $50,000 a month in 2024 would be a lot of money, but in 2008, that's even more absurd. So sadly, he sold the restaurant as well as all of its contents. That was the deal. When he sold the restaurant, sold the entire contents to Keith McNally. And to Keith's credit, I have to say that he kept a lot of the original interior, including that artwork that I mentioned before, those little cutouts, and all these amazing, amazing portraits and caricatures that are of the struggling artists and the bohemians and many of the famous customers that have come and dined at Minetta Tavern over the years. So they line all the walls. And if you go into the next slide, this is the back booth. So not only are there more portraits of famous customers and more caricatures, but to us, this was a little hidden gem that maybe some of you may never seen. Even if you went inside Minetta Tavern, maybe you only stayed at the front bar or you sat in the front room. But if you go in the back room, lining the walls are these gorgeous oil paintings. They're murals. They're like done right on the wall by Mr. Weatherby. Let me see, what's his first name? Holden Weatherby in 1953. And they depict scenes from like old Greenwich Village. So you can see here, like, there's a street, the horse-drawn carriage, and they explain like all the different scenes. So it goes around, like this is just one part of the room, but these murals wrap around the entire like circumference of the back room. And they're really, really, really gorgeous. I can say that James and I were really taken aback by their beauty because we had never really seen them. In all honesty, we'd been in the bar, but we had never been in the back room. We were one of those people that I was saying, maybe it happened to you too, and never noticed these. And we were just in awe of it when we were photographing the space. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention was, in general, of how we approach the photography is we had an eye that we would include the exterior photo like we showed you for McSorley's. And then we'd have that, if you go back to the previous slide, kind of
Establishing shop.
Right, establishing interior shots, showing the whole sweeping interior, just so you can like get a sense of the space, like if you're gonna walk in, this is how it would look. And then go back to the next slide.
You know, like
Hone in on some of the details that are often missed, because that is the whole point of the book, is to not just show the exterior, just to show those little details and maybe invite you guys to go inside to places that you maybe have been to before or maybe never been to before, just to check out some of these details because they are incredible. And I mean, I would say one of our personal favorites was definitely discovering.
We would go right before the bar opened.
Right, all the photography, as you can see, was purposely done when the bar was not open for business. And that was a decision we made early on in the project, that we wanted to showcase the bar's beauty. We didn't want to be crowded with people or even have the owner in the photograph, because when you look at a photograph and it has a person in it, you naturally want to look at the person. I mean, that's just like human nature. Your eyes will gravitate to the person. But we wanted the heroes of the photographs to be the bar's interior, or the exterior, in the case of the exterior photographs. But all those details, we wanted you to be able to see them and see the gorgeousness of the space. So,
Just available light.
right, that was another hallmark, is that, I mean, in general, James and I, as architectural photographers, what we're known for, what people hire us versus like somebody else, because there's a lot of architectural photographers, is that we don't bring equipment with us, lighting equipment. We never do. That's our hallmark of our photography. Whatever we do with existing light, whether it's natural light, which is, preferable, but like in a backroom space like this, I mean, it would be completely pitch black. There's no windows back here at all. We needed the light from the bar, but that was very important for us because we wanted to showcase how the bar looked as if you were stepping foot inside of it yourself. Like it would look this very same way. We didn't light it up with like, giant lights and, have a big generator set up, like something like that. Because honestly, a lot of architectural photography is done that way. They'll bring in a huge amount of equipment, so there won't be, and they'll stage the whole thing, so there won't be shadows or to highlight certain things. Not going too far into the whole photography world, but there's a lot of tricks that, behind the scene things that you don't realize.
3 of the bars opened at 8 a.m.
Yes.
We'd have to get there very early.
Yeah, that was a surprise to us. We're like, oh good, because James and I are kind of like mic people ourselves. Like we're not early. We're not known to be early risers. But 3 of the bars that are in our book were opened at 8 a.m. and we're like, oh my God, are you kidding? We have to set our alarm for 5:30 to get there in time. And believe it or not, they were shooing people away. We would get there, and there would be a line at 7 o'clock in the morning for 7 o'clock. We were laughing. We're like, no. They were trying to come in the door with us, and the bartender would be like, no. You have to stay outside. I'll let you in at 8. Let them do their thing first. Yeah, we had honestly no idea. I mean, I've never been to a bar at 8 a.m. before because James and I don't work on. But it's a common practice that happened because, back in the day, especially when there's a lot of factories around New York, there was 3 shifts. I mean, like if you work in a hospital, that it never closes. So there's your 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. shift, there's your 3 p.m. to 11, and then there's your 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. So, right, that's why the bars are open at 8 a.m., but not Minetta Tavern. So, I think we covered everything, right? Minetta? Yep. So next one. We're going from Greenwich Village back to the East Village. And like I said, I'm sporting one of the bar shirts. So we always like to tell people, even if you're not going to have a drink or you don't want to have food in a bar that serves food, one way that you can support them is if they sell t-shirts, you can buy a t-shirt. So James and I, we could have quite a collection because it's not just bars, but like all the little mom and pop stores, we have a lot of t-shirts. That's like our little thing that we like to give back and just wear them to our events to kind of be a form of a walking advertisement for them. But this is 7B, otherwise known as Horseshoe Bar, otherwise known as Vazak. And it's very unique because it has those three names. And you might be like, first of all, where is it? It's at the corner of East 7th Street and Avenue B, hence the name 7B. And Horseshoe Bar, because of its namesake, huge U-shaped horseshoe bar. And Vazak, because it used to be a catering hall, known as Vazak Catering Hall. And the building, let me get the date right, was first erected in 1935. And it was erected as a catering hall. So that's when the building first opened, and this bar is the original from 1935. When it was built, they built the bar for it too, because this was the bar area, and then upstairs, you can kind of see that it goes, like there's those windows up there, there's a staircase that would lead to the upstairs. That's where the catering was done. So first, like if you were going to have an event there, you'd start down at the bar. Everyone would have drinks, maybe some hors d'oeuvres or whatever, and then you would make your way upstairs to the large, catering hall for the wedding or whatever event was going on. And that's why it has those three names. So the current owner, which is Nicole Hudson, who took it over from her father, which took it over from her grandfather, who purchased it from the Vazak family. They like to say, well, depending on the age of the customer is like what they call a bar. So a lot of young customers call it 7B because of, hey, meet me at 7B because of 7th and B. But the old timers always call it Vazak. And it's a really amazing space because not only does it have its original U-shaped bar, but the Tudor windows, as you can see here, are the original Tudor windows. They provide a lot of natural light. And going back to what James and I were talking about, that we like to shoot in natural light, we were able to do that as much as possible. I think there was some bar lighting as well, but they provided a lot of natural light. And you might recognize it because of its natural light. It's been used in countless movies and TV shows, including one of our favorites, which is The Godfather 2. It was the scene of the famous, they tried to strangle, the Rosano brothers tried to strangle somebody sitting at the bar, and then they, he doesn't succeed, but they run out into the street, and there's actually like a shot of the bar and then down the street looking down Avenue B that appears in The Godfather Part 2. I think that was 1973, right? And then, let me get some other little, so I get the dates right. Oh no, that was 74. In 1986, it was appeared in Crocodile Dundee, where the Australian protagonist meets a sex worker there. And in the film adaptation in 2005 of the musical Rent, it appears as the exterior for Life Cafe, which the main character's neighborhood haunt. And Netflix series are Russian Doll and Natasha Lyonne, and more recently, I think 2015 is it, James? It appeared in the movie Begin Again with Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley. Nicole Hudson always says, depending on the age of the person, the bar is, the movie references, give away their age. Lining, I think there's another photo.
Yeah, the boots.
Yep, lining the boots. These are the original boots as well. There's some more old photos, including, you can see that one, Paul Newman. Because Paul Newman, what movie was that Paul Newman movie, James? Maybe somebody at the end can remember what the Paul Newman movie was, but there's also
Ernest Borgnine.
Right, and Carol O'Connor.
Yep.
Right, that's
With the owners, dad.
right, that's
And Iggy Pop.
right. Iggy Pop, you could see him on the bottom left. Iggy Pop was a resident of the Dora building, which is just down the street on Avenue B. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, it's like was the tallest building in the East Village for a while, because I think it's like maybe 20 stories or so. It's fairly tall for the East Village, which is preponderance of 4 and 5 story tenement buildings. It's a very large, beautiful brick building. And Nicole Hudson also said when she took over in the mid-2000s from her father that the members of the Strokes were frequent customers because they also lived in the neighborhood. And that one night they brought with them, let's see.
White Stripes.
Yeah, and Beck and Macaulay Culkin and Drew Barrymore, like they had us get together. And the regulars were starstruck, but they kept to themselves. And she said she'll always remember that every time Macaulay Culkin would turn his back, that like he wouldn't be able to see the regulars sitting at the bar, that they would all go like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, do the whole long face, and like they would all crack up, and then they would turn around like, why are they laughing? But then they would quick stop making the face. So, we just imagine it, like how funny that moment must have been. But it's we would encourage you, if you've never been before, to check it out, because not only is it a beautiful bar, but it's been through a lot of changes. I mean, it started out as kind of like this neighborhood spot under the radar. That a lot of the old cronies from the neighborhood back from when it was a catering hall kept on going, because the neighborhood has a large Eastern European population. So there was a lot of Eastern Europeans that would hang out there, Ukrainians and Polish people as well. But then it kind of changed, and punk people from punk music and artists, that moved into the neighborhood in the late 70s and 80s, started going to the bar, and then now she's like, it's a mix of all different people, but a lot of NYU students as well, because NYU, I mean, will you tell you that they bought up a lot of real estate in and around not only Greenwich Village here, but they've now expanded to buying up lots and lots of buildings in the East Village. I mean, they've even got dorms over there. I mean, you think, oh, what in the world? Why would they have a dorm over by Avenue B? They do. And they have, I think they have people in Stuyvesant, in Peter Stuyvesant, Stuyvesant Town as well. I guess they need dorm space so much that they're, putting them up in Stuyvesant Town. Yeah, so last one. I think we have time for one more. White Horse Tavern. Now, White Horse Tavern is a beautiful, beautiful historic building. It's actually housed, in case you don't know about it, it's nearby here as well, right on the corner of West 11th and Hudson Street. And it's in one of the few existing wood frame buildings that is still in existence in New York City. James and I, when we first started documenting these small mom and pop places, one of the things that we like to do at night is we like to read about New York City's history, because even though I went to school here in New York, I'm born and bred New Yorker, you can probably tell from my accent, but I can honestly say that I didn't learn much about New York City's history in history class in New York. I remember learning about Mesopotamia and all sorts of places that I honestly don't even really know where they are, but I didn't learn that much about New York, sadly. I mean, at least I didn't. And we were always fascinated by it. What are these, what are the neighborhood's histories? And to us, it was amazing to learn. White Horse Tavern started out as a longshoreman's bar, because there's other bars in our book too, including Yearn, which is, further down, but it used to be at the water. The water used to be on the footsteps of Yearn, and now it's been filled in land. But White Horse Tavern in particular was a longshoreman's bar, because there used to be a lot of piers along the river, and there was, docks. And I kind of remembered this because my father happens to be, rest in peace, he's no longer with us, but he was a longshoreman himself, and he originally worked on the docks on the west side, and then he got transferred when they started closing them they transferred him to the Port of Newark, and that's really my childhood memories. It's not him working along the Hudson River, but along, he used to take me to the Port of Newark, and I don't know why. When there wasn't a boat to unload, you know, it's a little different nowadays. Like, thinks it's all computerized, but that was back in the day. Like, if something wasn't going on, you know, you could get away with a lot, and you know, he would bring me along, and I would run around, you know, hold cranes, and probably be in unsafe things that they wouldn't ever want to happen anymore. But that was it. So getting back to Whitehorse, it's an amazing bar. And it's known because it was the last, not only does it have so many literary tie-ins, just like Minetta Tavern has so many literary and artistic taverns, so does Whitehorse Tavern. But the most famous, it was Joe Gould at Minetta Tavern, but here at Whitehorse Tavern, it's all about Dylan Thomas. Now, Dylan Thomas, if you're not familiar, he was a Welsh poet, and the owner at the time when we first photographed Whitehorse Tavern, which I'm going to talk about this exterior photograph in a minute, more about its details. His name was Eddie Brennan, and he was a wonderful caretaker of Whitehorse Tavern. Not only did he own the bar, but he also purchased the entire building. And he told us when we first spoke with him that he thought that Dylan Thomas felt comfortable at Whitehorse Tavern because Dylan Thomas, coming from a Welsh background where, you know, he spent a lot of time with, you know, people that worked on the sea, and just like a working man's neighborhood. That's how he grew up. So he felt comfortable at Whitehorse Tavern because it kept that same vibe of a longshoreman's tavern. Eddie also, I want to point out, lovingly maintained that neon sign. A little bone of contention that we have tonight. The neon sign was, I think, definitely 1940s. I have it down, if you peek through here. Oh, 1946 is when that neon sign went up. And it's made by the Allen Sign Company, which is one of the manufacturers. You know, there used to be a lot of neon sign manufacturers here in New York City, and this was one of the only existing signs from the Allen Sign Company, a very famous sign company that exists in existence. There's a little maker mark, you can't see it here, but there's a little, what they call a maker mark right underneath that says Allen Sign Company. And I think it was in the mid-2000s, maybe like it was around 2006 or 7, 8, something like that. I can't remember the date exactly, but when we spoke with Eddie, he had recently had the sign refurbished, and he ended up spending like over $15,000 back then to have it completely fixed because it was all rusting. It's actually on cobalt blue porcelain enamel background, and then it has like this metal frame, and it was all rusting out, and the neon was no longer working, and it's very, very costly to have neon maintained. I mean, that's why you don't see a lot of neon signs around New York City anymore. Minetta Tavern is a place that has its original neon sign. Yearn, that's it said bar, but then they painted it over, they blackened it out to say ear, but that's another story that's not for tonight. But Whitehorse Tavern, up until recently, had the beautiful neon sign. Now, the little bone of contention that I have tonight is I'm not sure why the current owner, which is Aiton Sugarman, who took over, sadly, Eddie Brennan decided to retire. He sold the bar. And contingent on that the new owners would retain its original interior and keep, I mean, it is a landmark building. Because it is one of the few wood-frame structures, it is landmarked. And I honestly don't know, and I don't know, we'll open up to Q&A in the end if anybody have heard, why they removed the neon. It is now LED. I don't know why, so maybe a couple of you can enlighten me if you know the reason, but I'm assuming it has to do with cost, because like I said, it does cost a lot to maintain a neon sign. Every time it rains and when it snows, a transformable blow, something goes out. I mean, this happens almost all the time because we speak to a lot of the store owners, and we know this from speaking to them. They have to have a contract where they have somebody come and repair it all the time. It's very, very, very costly. To the next slide. But Dylan Thomas, going back to Dylan Thomas and why he was famous here at the bar, is he frequently drank here. And it was the last place that he drank at before he died in 1953. He said to say, I had 18 shots of whiskey and that's a record. I mean, this is what he told a friend. Sadly, he collapsed after leaving the bar and he died. He had, at the time, was staying at the Chelsea Hotel nearby, and he would often come and drink here. His portrait is hanging right here. There's a picture of him sitting at the bar. And the middle room is, we have more photos inside our book, but the middle room has been dedicated as the Dylan Thomas room in his honor. And there's other beautiful portrait of him that's painted, that's sitting on the wall. But luckily, the inside is still beautiful like it is. If you go there tonight, it will look just like this. Of course, it will be crowded with people, but the horse head fixtures are original. The bar, which is cut, I believe, from a single piece, I think it's 22 feet long. I think it's a single piece of mahogany, if I remember correctly. Hand cut and polished, which is really amazing. The beveled glass mirror. And then if you go back a slide, another thing to the exterior that I want to point out before we take a question is these little horse motifs. This isn't just decoration. This is actually, because it dates back to 1880, this was your air conditioning for the time. These are actual louvers that open up. And when they made the bar, they said, oh, let's get a way to make it not so hot in here and also to get some air in because, a lot of people smoked at the time. Now smoking is illegal inside bars, but they were smoking cigars, pipes, cigarettes, whatever, tobacco, I don't know. I mean, did they even have cigarettes back?
Yeah.
No, we've been holding ones, but
Oh, yeah.
there was, manufacturing cigarettes in the 1800s. But they tilt open. I mean, they haven't opened in years, but that's the whole, they're not just decorations. So there's a lot of details that we like to point out, and I mean, on and on, we could go on and on for hours talking about it, but certainly I want to thank Village Preservation for GVSHP for allowing us to show a little bit of our interior and exterior photography, talk about these wonderful gems that you can go to today, because really the whole purpose of this talk and our book is for you to go to these bars, discover them for yourself, and ensure that future generations will go to them too, because the number one reason why places close is that they don't have the business. They need your business. That's the bottom line. Even if they own the building, it's not always the the end-all solution. I mean, taxes increase every month, maintenance, things like that. Even maintaining an old building, I'm sure, like this one, things are probably always going wrong with it, I imagine. But really, we want you to go out and discover these places for yourself, and maybe use our book as a kind of like a guide to, help you discover, more about them. So, yeah, thank you so much, guys. Any questions? And does anybody know about that neon travesty? Yes?
How did you get this picture with that ugly...
That's what I was going to talk about. Like I said, most of the photography in the book was taken in 2023, not this one. This was taken in, I would say, 2009. This is when Eddie Brennan still owned the bar, and he did not have all the tchotchkes, the fake flowers, and all the seating that blocks the entire sidewalk. I mean, some of the sidewalk seating is going to go very soon because now, because of the rules that were put in place during the pandemic, they expanded outdoor seating, but now it's going to be scaled back again, so it's going to be much, much less. But I don't think White Horse Tavern, it's different. I mean, it's not like on the street. I think they have different permitting that I think is going to stay. So yeah, you cannot get this photo anymore. Now it's just completely, all this is a lot, unfortunately. So yeah.
Yeah, nice notice.
Good. And I was going to talk about it, but it slipped my mind. But I said, oh, I'm going to get back to that, the reason behind this photo. But we had to include this older photo because, like, you know, we wanted to show all those beautiful details of the exterior, which sadly are kind of covered up now. I mean, we're happy that the bar is still there. You know, it's like a love-hate relationship. You're happy that a place still exists. I mean, you know, we're not trying to make New York a museum and just say nothing can ever change. I mean, that's not the way. We have to move forward to the future, but you know, things can be done with a nod to preservation and a nod to maintaining its, you know, past and its original, you know, purposes.
If I remember correctly, I was in Pete's Tavern about 40 years ago, and I know I was sitting in a booth, and I kind of remember doorbells in the booth. Is that still a thing? Working.
No, not anymore. If they're there, I definitely would have seen them. And Gary Egan, who's the owner now, definitely would have pointed it out to us as something of interest. I mean, we really scoured that place.
Yeah.
We photographed it more. We photographed it and then we re-photographed it again in 2023. There is a special booth there, which is O. Henry. Is that on the back of your shirt? No, we didn't put it. But it's where
It's
O.
on the
Henry
cover.
that's the cover image for the book. If you advance, does it go back to the first slide? Oh, just, yeah. So, no, that's
Yeah,
fine. Perfect. So that's Pete's Tavern here. You can see some of the booths. But it's where the writer O. Henry wrote the Christmas story, The Gift of the Magi. And also another short story of his, a less famous story. But he often died in that first booth. So they have a little dedication in that booth for him that it's the O. Henry's booth. But the doorbells, no, I mean, as far as I know, I'll ask Gary, but
Yeah.
I've never seen them. Anybody else? Yes?
Hi, and of the bars that you present in the book, are any of the interiors landmarked?
That is a great question. I don't think so. I don't think any of them, I mean, interior landmark status is a very, very difficult thing that a lot of people, I don't think even owners want that. You know, that's a fight that William probably could take up more. But I know that even the owners of Strand Bookstore, they didn't, weren't happy about the building when being landmarked. I don't know if that's still ongoing. What's the fight? That's not really. I don't know if that's kind of out of the jurisdiction of what you guys cover, but as far as I know, no interior landmarks. Definitely White Horse Tavern exterior landmark for sure because of the wood frame structure. And it's also located in a historic district. I don't know if you guys know this, but when you're walking around, especially in Greenwich Village, a lot of the streets, there'll be brown signs instead of green. That if you see a brown sign, meaning the street sign, like what street you're on, if it's brown, it means it's in a historic district. If it's a regular green sign, like, say 14th Street or something, it's just going to be green, saying 1-4. That's because it's not landmarked. But that's another little thing that can help you when you're walking around and you'd be like, oh wow, why do so many of the buildings look so beautiful, like you step back in time? Well, because of work from Preservation Society, like the one that sponsored this event tonight. So kudos for them to helping maintain the character of the neighborhood. Yes.
For the text that is inside the book, did you interview the owners of the bar, or was that done by person who did the words on the front, or was it a
Yeah,
combination?
we have interviewed the owners, and some of the interviews that we conducted were used by Dan Dow, who wrote the text for the book. Dan Dow was found, I mean, just being totally transparent, was found by our publisher and brought on board. When this book project came to be, we honestly, James and I had a very short period of time in which to photograph the book, and we were happy that they wanted to bring a writer on board because we really did not have the time, because we do work. I mean, we are architectural photographers. It's not like we're just bookmakers, like we just keep on churning out books and then that's all we do. We have regular jobs. And,
But it ended up being nice. 'Cause
yeah, it was really.
He brings like a younger voice
Right,
to it.
he
Like
does.
a different perspective than
Right,
like where
he's,
we're usually coming from. So it ended up working real nice. He's a younger guy.
yeah, he's younger and he has, he used to work for different he has a food and wine beverage writing background. He used to work for Eater and other publications, Time Out I think as well. But yeah, he used some of the interviews, and then he doesn't reside here in New York anymore, so I think he conducted some interviews. He would come here and meet with people, but I think he did some things over the phone as well. We helped put him in touch with a lot of the owners, gave them their phone number. But that's the text is culled from. It's a great question. Our own interviews, because in our previous books we did write the text, like our storefront, The Disappearing Face in New York Nights, where we interviewed Eddie Brennan, the owner of Whitehorse Tavern. So this good, and also there were copywriters involved, so we're almost 100% sure that it's accurate as much as things can be, because some of these are like stories that get passed down. Even if it's coming from an owner, it might be, okay, the owner's grandfather or something like he said, you play telephone and things get, kind of like mashed up over the years, but as much as we can tell, it's accurate, and like I said, it's very refreshing. Basically, we open up the spread with, if you want to grab the, here, I can grab it. The book, it works kind of like this, where we have the text and then the exterior photograph is here. So that's, and then the captions actually on the photos are all written by James and I. We're the ones who caption the photographs because we're the ones who took them, so it didn't make sense for a writer to caption our photographs. So the captions are our writing, and the introduction is our writing, the acknowledgements are our writing, but otherwise it's the writer Dan Dow, who did, I think, a fantastic job. We're very pleased. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for coming back.
And James and Paula are selling their books, so please grab a copy. They'll sign it for you if you're interested in learning anything more about village preservation.